I want to get into the concepts with Windows subscription activation. Now, you may be familiar with activation in the past. Windows has always, well, I shouldn't say always, but Windows, at least since Windows XP came out, has required that you activate it. So going all the way back to 2002, 2003, that time period where Windows XP came out, we have had to activate Windows, and Microsoft has been pretty hardcore on it. Now, as time has gone on, Microsoft has provided ways for activation to make things a little easier. So essentially what happened with activation is you would install Windows, you would purchase Windows, you would get what was called a product key, and Microsoft would require you to activate that product key, usually within about 30 days, depending upon the operating system. You'd have to enter the product key in. It would communicate with some servers on the internet and would activate based on some serial numbers that it would pull from your computer based on the motherboard, processor, and all that. And that way you couldn't just use that same product key on other devices. Okay. And that's how they handled that for years. And of course, the solutions they came out with as time went on, Microsoft came out with this thing called a multiple activation key, an MAK, where you would have a single key that could be activated multiple times. And they also came out with a service called KMS, Key Management Services, which is a service you could install on a machine, and that machine would automate the process of activating machines in your environment. So you could have 1,000 Windows machine or whatever in your environment. You would set up a KMS server, Key Management Services server, and that machine would activate all your machines, and your computers would check in about every 7 days and make sure they're activated. And if they lost connectivity with the KMS server for more than 180 days, they would lose their activation, and that's the way it was done. Now, fast forward to today, okay, the world we're living in now. First off, Microsoft is deprecating KMS. So they're not making it where you can't use it. They're just no longer going to add any new features to it, and they're not going to provide support for it. They're basically deprecating it. So, you can still use it as of right now, but its days are numbered. Microsoft wants everybody to use the subscription service now, which is Windows Subscription Activation. The other good news is, for the most part, you can still use Windows even if it's not activated. It just doesn't let you use any of the personalization features of it. So, unlike the early days of Windows XP, where Windows XP would just not let you use it at all, in the latest versions of Windows, you can still use Windows. You just can't do any of the personalization features. But ultimately, if you want to personalize it and utilize Office and all that, you're going to need to activate it. And so Microsoft would prefer for you, or would like you to use the newer system. And that involves having their Microsoft Cloud Services account in order to do that and have a license for it. So if you look here on the screen, I have got a document that outlines Windows subscription activation. Okay. You can find this exact same document, which is always going to have the latest and greatest information on it. If you go to Google or Bing and just search these keywords right here, Windows subscription activation, you should be able to find this document, okay? And it'll contain the latest and greatest information. I always encourage people to look at the latest and greatest information, even though I constantly am trying to fight to update my videos. Microsoft changes things so quickly. It's like week after week after week. No matter how fast I update my videos, things are getting changed. So you can always see the latest and greatest here, and they tell you this is where you can see about activation. So if you have Windows, any of if you have like a pro version of Windows, then you can upgrade to Enterprise to get access to all of the versions of all the features that Windows has to offer. Okay, so there's Windows E3, there's Windows E5. I'm not going to get into the big difference right now. I'll just give it to you in a nutshell. E3 and E5, the big differences, that's with Windows Enterprise, Enterprise 3, Enterprise 5. Those are their two big subscriptions that they mention. And E3 essentially does not have as many security features as E5. So E5 gives you more security features than E3. You get a few other features, but I'm not going to get into all the depth on that right now. Okay. Just know that, of course, E3 is going to be a little cheaper than E5 a month, and you can always go to Google and just do a search for Windows Enterprise E3 versus E5, and if you just want to know the differences right now, there's lots of lots of stuff out there that'll explain it to you and tell you about the cost and all that. So here's a quick glimpse of the cost, but this is not just looking at Windows E3, E5. This is wanting to sell you Microsoft E3, E5, which is not just Windows, but it comes with a lot of products. I'll look deeper into that in a moment. But ultimately, when it comes to subscription activation, this is for Windows Pro editions, okay? And you can see which versions are supported. Some of these are, if you got older versions, you would have to upgrade to a newer version before you'll be able to support this. And they tell you as you get deeper into this right here, all right, what you can support. So basically, you know, the Windows 10, Windows 11, all that stuff, a lot of that's fine. But, you know, Windows 7, Windows 8.1, all of that, there's more processes involved in getting that to work. Okay, and even the older versions of Windows 10, hopefully you're not using, you know, Windows 10 1507, right? But from there, you can use this online service for activation. This is a lot better. A good example is like the COVID world. Here's something that a lot of businesses ran into with COVID. When COVID hit in March of 2020, companies were using KMS. And remember, if a machine is unable, a machine will communicate with KMS every 7 days, and it'll get reactivated. Now, if it is not in contact with KMS for more than 180 days, it would lose its activation. So you had a lot of people that took laptops and stuff like that home, and they were at home for months, and then all of a sudden they lost their activation because they were out of connection with that KMS service. With this newer way of doing things, the subscription-based activation, your subscription is tied to your what's called Azure Active Directory account. So every user in your environment in a perfect world has an Azure Active Directory account. Or if you're in a Microsoft domain and you hybrid join your Microsoft domain and tie it in that way, a license can basically be associated with every user, and that license at that point will work with that device that they are logging onto. So the user they can utilize up to 5 devices to be activated for using things like Office and all of that. And so this works out really, really well. It makes it where the activation just happens online, happens over the internet. The machine could be anywhere and get activated. All right, now I want to show you something here. If I want to look and see, I have to make sure I have a license for this. Now there's various ways you can get a license. One way you can get a license for Windows Enterprise E3, E5 is to have a license for Microsoft 365 E3 or E5. And you pay monthly per user for that. And by doing that, you're going to get access to Windows through all of that. But you can also purchase licenses just for Windows separately without having a full Microsoft 365 subscription. In my case, I actually have Office 365 and E5, which doesn't come with Windows, so a Windows subscription. So I might have to get one separately. But how can I find all that out? So how can we find out what licenses we have and what we don't if we're going to deal with activation? Well, we're going to go to a portal. So I'm going to go to portal.microsoft.com. If you did not know, this is the main place where the Microsoft 365 services is going to be managed. It's going to show you what licenses you have. It'll show you who's got what license. It's going to show you the subscriptions, all of that, and we can see that under billing right here. So if I go right here, I can click on your products, okay, and it's going to show you what products I have. Now, if you're doing this stuff with me, I want you to know you may not have all the same stuff I do, and that's fine. It's not a big deal. All right. Depending upon what you did, you may have Office 365 E5, and you may have Enterprise Mobility Plus Security E5, whatever. Okay. This gives you all the Office products. This gives you some security features, but unfortunately, none of that gives me a license for Windows, for a Windows client operating system. Okay. So what I can actually do is I can go right here where it says Purchase Services. All right. And I can click on some of these various services. Like I could look at Microsoft 365 services here, and I can scroll down and see what's available. So I got business premium month to month, and all of that. You can even compare these, by the way, which is neat if you click the comparison. Now let's scroll down and let's find, let's look at, let me find a good one here. Let's find Microsoft 365. Let's take away the featured for just a second. All right, there it is, Microsoft 365 E5. Let's do month to month. All right, so let's compare those two together. All right, and we can see that, so we've got Microsoft 365 Business Premium here. We got E5 here, so we can kind of scroll down. We can see the various features that I'm going to get with the E5, and I'm not going to get with Business Premium. Okay, so if we look through here, all right, so take a look. You get this subscription here, a Windows-based subscription, so Windows client-based subscription essentially. Now keep in mind that these this subscription that you get here is supported, applies to Windows 10 and Windows 11, regardless of what it may say on the screen there when you're looking at this. But where did my comparison go? Here we go. Let's go back over here. All right, if we look at our operating system, so we get with E5 we get all of these capabilities here, all of these features here that are available to me. All right. So as far as licensing goes, you're going to get all of this. Now there's also an E3. We could look at E3 as well. But here's what I want to do. I'm going to go back over to purchase services. Now in your case, you can probably, a lot of times when you click on these, depending upon the time of year, you can click details on these and they'll do a free trial. Yeah, start free trial. So one option that you can go with here is you can say start free trial if you want on these, and just got to make sure that you cancel it before the billing period. So you can do that, and if you do that, you'll automatically get a Windows subscription. In my case, though, I'm going to go over here to where it says Windows. I'm going to turn off the Microsoft 365. We're going to look at Windows, and right here, month to month, you can do Windows 10, 11, Enterprise E3, or for a year, pay in a year, or this roughly $10 per user per month if I do this, 10, 11, E3. So I'm going to click that one, and I am going to activate this, and I'm actually going to pay for this. Now, again, in your case, if you want to do this with me, you can. You can pay the $10 or whatever it costs, or you can go back and do the Microsoft 365 subscription just for a month for free, and just make sure you cancel it. And you can cancel licenses and stuff by going over to this area here. But in my case, I'm going to pay for it. Now, I also want to tell you that whether you activate or not, you can still do pretty much everything in this course just about that I'm going to do. So if you're really nervous and you don't want to pay any money and all that, it's not a big deal. I wouldn't stress over it. Okay. So I am going to go ahead and do this. I'm going to purchase it. I'm not going to show that because it's going to show some of my personal information. So I'm going to pause this recording while I do that. All right. Real quick, everybody. I forgot to mention that the version of Windows that I demonstrated earlier with setting up like a Windows 11 virtual machine, I used an evaluation copy of Windows 11, and you probably did too if you did that process. So unfortunately, the subscription-based activation won't work because it's an evaluation copy. So it can't be an evaluation copy of Windows when you go through this process. So unfortunately, I'm still going to demonstrate the whole process, but at the end of it, you won't see it get activated just because it's an evaluation copy. Now, if you got a legitimate, you've gone through the motions of setting up and getting a legitimate copy of Windows, that it's not just an evaluation copy, then this will work, and you can feel free if you want to get a license, a subscription, or set up the free trial like I was just mentioning. You can do that, and you will see it get activated. But it's not a big deal. This is not a process that I say you have to go through yourself. Just understanding these concepts is really all you need. All right, so let's go ahead and move on. All right, so as you can see, it now says that you're all set. My order is in. I've placed that order, and it asks me if I would like to assign license to users. So I'm going to go over here, and this is just under active users. Now keep in mind, you may not have all the same users that I have. Keep in mind that have taught a lot of different courses, and I use this subscription for that to teach these various courses. So you may see users here. If you're doing a lot of this with me and you don't have these users, that's not a big deal. But I have a user that is my JC at examlabpractice.com. That's my main user that I'm going to be doing my demonstrations and stuff with. So I'm going to use that that user account. Let's just locate it here. Yeah, JC at Exam Lab Practice. So there's John Christopher. I'm going to click on that, and from there, go over here to Licenses and Apps, and I am going to assign this license right here to that user. Okay, so we'll save changes, and there you go. So we've done it. Now I do want to warn you that even though I'm going to kind of continue and show you the process here of getting a machine activated, just do want to warn you that sometimes you have to wait about an hour when you activate it, when you enable a subscription like this, before it's fully functional. So sometimes you might run into an error, but so I just kind of like to warn you not to jump the gun on this. Sometimes you may have to wait a little bit longer, okay? So now what I want to do, let's jump into our operating system and see where we would go from here. So here I am on my Windows client machine, and my NYCCL11 client machine that I've created as a virtual machine, and I'm just going to hit start. Oh, and notice right here it's telling you that I have a license that's only valid for the next 21 days. I've had this virtual machine up and running for a while, so it's running out of time as far as activation goes. And I've just logged on as the administrator. I'm going to click Start, and we'll go right here to Settings. All right, I'm just going to search for the word Work, and you're going to see an option that says Access Work or School. So we're going to click that. And you can see I'm joined to a Microsoft domain called examlabpractice.com. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to join it to Azure Active Directory, which will allow licenses and all that to kick in. So we're going to click Connect. All right, put in my email address here, examlabpractice.com. Okay, we'll click Next. And I'm going to put my password in. Hopefully I did that right. All right, and it's now registering to my company. All right, or to my Azure environment, which is also my Microsoft 365 environment. And so this machine will now officially be linked. Okay, now as always, you do want to be advised that this can take some time before everything kicks in. It doesn't always happen immediately like we would like sometimes. All right, so you do kind of have to give this some time. Now, the sad thing about all of this is that the version of Windows 11 that I've set up in my virtual machine is just a trial. It's an evaluation edition, so I can't really utilize this license on evaluation edition. But I wanted to go through this whole process to show you how it would be done. So if you're doing this in the real world, you've basically seen the process. The user can sign on. At that point, once you've authenticated and linked with Azure AD, then when you go back to activation, it should say that it's activated and the activation state is good. But in my case, it is still going to keep saying that my license is expiring, because this, again, if you'll notice, this is an evaluation. Okay, but that is how you can go through that process of, users. Each user can be given a license. At that point, they can have that license linked to that user for their device, and you can even see what devices a user has linked to them by going back into that portal.microsoft.com. If you look at the users, if you click on the user, you can look at the devices that are associated with them and see what's activated. Okay, now I'm not getting into the details in this video, but one question that might be on your mind is, you saw me go through the process of joining Windows 11, in this case, to Azure Active Directory by going to Access Work or School. So you may say, well, I don't want to have to do it. Could you imagine having to do that on everybody's machine? That's a lot of work, right? Well, I'll go ahead and tell you, and I'm not getting into the details again in this video, but you can actually automate the process of machines joining Azure Active Directory. If you're in a hybrid environment, you can use GPOs, group policy objects, to just have computers automatically join. You can also use provisioning packages to have them automatically join. And if you're using Intune Autopilot, you can have them automatically join that way, or if your company is using Config Manager. So there's multiple ways to have devices to make them just automatically join to Azure AD and make all this magically happen. What I showed you was the manual way of joining a computer to Azure Active Directory. But just so you know, there are multiple ways of doing that. And I could essentially use any of these various ways if I wanted to do that. In fact, if you go out to Bing or you go out to Google, and again, you're going to learn more about this stuff, but I just want to show you, if I want to auto join Windows to Azure AD, if you do a quick search on that, you're going to see there are lots of articles that basically walk you through the various ways that can do this, okay? But again, we're going to learn more as we get deeper in. But the point of this video is to help you understand the idea of subscription-based activation, and hopefully that we've achieved that. Hey, this is John Christopher. I hope you enjoyed getting to experience a little bit of this course, and I hope you'll join me on the full adventure. If you'll check the description of this video, you'll see a link that'll show you how you can get access to the full course. Now, in the full course, you're going to learn how to set up a practice environment where you can practice hands-on, and I'm going to provide you with lots of virtual simulations that you can do 24/7. All you need is a web browser. So I hope you'll join me, and I hope you'll also give me a like and subscribe. I'm trying very, very hard to get this channel to build and grow, and so I hope you'll take the time to do that.